Magic Tree House, book number 18. Buffalo Before Breakfast. Chapter 1. Teddy's Back. Arf, arf, arf. Jack finished tying his sneakers. Then he looked out his bedroom window. A small dog stood in the early sunlight. He had floppy ears and scruffy brown fur. "Teddy," said Jack. Just then, Annie ran into Jack's room. "Teddy's back," she said. "It's time." It was time for their second mission, to help free the little dog from a spell. Jack threw his notebook and pencil into his backpack. Then he followed Annie downstairs and past the kitchen. "Where are you two going?" their mom called. "Outside," said Jack. "Breakfast will be ready soon," she said, "and Grandmother will be here any minute." "We'll be right back," said Jack. He loved his grandmother's visits. She was kind and funny, and she always taught them new things. Jack and Annie slipped out the front door. Teddy was waiting for them. "Arf, arf," he barked. "Hey, where did you go last week?" Jack asked. The small dog wagged his tail joyfully. Then he ran up the sidewalk. "Wait for us!" Annie shouted. She and Jack followed Teddy up the street and into the Frog Creek woods. They ran between the trees. Wind rattled the leaves. Birds swooped from branch to branch. Teddy stopped in a rope ladder that hung from the tallest oak tree in the woods. At the top of the ladder was the magic tree house. Jack and Annie stared up at it. "No sign of Morgan," said Annie. "Let's go up," said Jack. Annie picked up Teddy. She carried him carefully up the ladder. Jack climbed after her. Inside the tree house, Teddy sniffed a silver pocket watch on the floor. Beside it was the note that Morgan had written to Jack and Annie. Annie picked up the note and read it aloud. "This little dog is under a spell and needs your help. To free him, you must be given 4 special things. A gift from a ship lost at sea, a gift from the prairie blue, a gift from a forest far away, a gift from a kangaroo. Be brave, be wise, be careful." "We've got the first special thing," said Annie. "A gift from a ship lost at sea." "Yeah," said Jack. He picked up the silver pocket watch. The time on the watch was 2:20, the time the Titanic had sunk. Jack and Annie stared at the watch. "Arf, arf!" Teddy's barking brought Jack back from his memories. "Okay," Jack said. He signed and pushed his glasses into place. "Now it's time for the gift from the prairie blue." "What does that mean?" said Annie. "I'm not sure," said Jack. He looked around the tree house. "But I bet that book will take us there." He picked up a book in the corner. The cover was a picture of a wide prairie. The title was The Great Plains. "Ready?" Jack said. Teddy yipped and wagged his tail. "Let's go," said Annie. "The sooner we free Teddy, the better." Jack pointed at the cover. "I wish we could go there," he said. The wind started to blow. The tree house started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 2. Ocean of Grass. Early sunlight slanted into the treehouse. The cool breeze smelled of wild grass. "Oh man," said Jack, "these are neat clothes." Their jeans and t-shirts had magically changed. Jack had on a buckskin shirt and pants. Annie wore a fringed buckskin dress. They both wore soft leather boots and coonskin caps. Jack's backpack was now a leather bag. "I feel like a mountain man," he said. "All you're missing is a mountain," said Annie. She pointed out the window. Jack and Teddy looked out. The tree house sat in a lone tree in a vast golden prairie. The sun was rising in the distance. Wind whispered through the tall yellow grass. "Shh, shh, shh," it said. "We need a gift from the prairie blue," said Jack. "I bet that means the sky," said Annie, looking up. "Yup," said Jack. The sky was growing bluer as they watched. "But how are we supposed to get it?" "Just like last time," said Annie. "We have to wait till someone gives it to us." "I don't see any sign of people out there," said Jack. He opened their book and read aloud. "The Great Plains are in the middle of the United States. Before the 20th century, this vast prairie covered nearly a fifth of America's land. Some called it an ocean of grass." Jack pulled out his notebook. "Come on," said Annie. She picked up Teddy and carried him down the ladder. Jack quickly wrote, Great Plains, lots of land. Wow, this is like an ocean of grass, Annie called from below. Jack slipped the Great Plains book and his notebook into his leather bag and climbed down. When he stepped onto the ground, the grass came all the way up to his chest. It tickled his nose. Choo! He sneezed. Let's go swimming in the grass ocean, said Annie. She started off with Teddy under her arm. The wind blew gently as Jack hurried after her. All he could see was rolling waves of grass. They walked and walked and walked. Finally, they stopped to rest. We could walk for months and never seeing anything but grass, said Jack. Arf, arf. Teddy says there's something great up ahead, said Annie. You can't tell what he's saying, said Jack. He's just barking. I can tell, said Annie. Trust me. We can't walk all day, said Jack. Come on, said Annie. Just a little farther. She started walking again. Oh, brother, said Jack. But he kept going through the tall, rippling grass. They went down a small slope, then up a small rise. At the top of the rise, Jack froze. Wow, that is great, he whispered. Told you, said Annie. Chapter 3, Black Hawk. Jack stared at a circle of teepees ahead. Busy people in buckskins moved about the circles. Horses and ponies grazed nearby. Jack took out the research book and found a picture of the teepees. He read, in the early 1800s, many different Native American tribes lived on the Great Plains. The Lakota were the largest tribe. They lived mostly in the areas we now call North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota. Jack pulled out his notebook and wrote, early 1800s, Lakota were largest tribe of Great Plains. Behind Jack and Annie, a horse neighed. They turned. A horse and a rider were heading toward the teepee camp. The sun was very bright behind the rider. Jack could only see the outline of a body with a bow and a quiver of arrows on his back. Jack quickly flipped through the book. He found a picture of a man on horseback carrying a bow and arrows. Below the picture it said, Lakota warrior. Jack read, everything changed for the Native Americans of the Great Plains after white settlers arrived in the mid-1800s. Fighting broke out between Lakota warriors and white soldiers. By the end of the 1800s, the Lakota were defeated. They lost both their land and their old way of life. Jack looked back at the rider. The warrior was coming closer. Get down, he whispered. Why? Said Annie. This might be a time when the Indians are fighting with the settlers, said Jack. The grass rustled as the warrior passed by them. His horse neighed again. Arf, arf! Shh, whispered Jack. But it was too late. The warrior had heard Teddy's barking. He galloped toward them, grabbing his bow. Wait, shouted Jack. He jumped up from the grass. We come in peace. The rider halted. Now Jack saw that he was only a boy on a pony. He couldn't have been more than 10 or 11. Hey, you're just a kid, Annie said, smiling. The boy didn't smile back, but he did lower his bow while he stared at Annie. What's your name? She asked. Black Hawk, he said. Cool name, said Annie. We're Jack and Annie. We're just visiting. We live in Frog Creek, Pennsylvania. Black Hawk nodded. Then he turned his pony around and started toward the Lakota camp. Hey, can we come with you? Called Annie. Black Hawk looked back. Yes, he said. Meet my people. You mean your parents? Asked Annie. No, they died long ago, said Black Hawk. I live with my grandmother. Oh, I'd like to meet your grandmother, said Annie. I'm going to see my grandmother today, too. Black Hawk nudged his pony forward again. Annie followed with Teddy. Jack didn't move. What if the Lakota were at war with the white settlers? He worried. What if they think we're enemies? Annie, Jack called softly. We don't know if it's safe or not. But Annie just waved for him to come on. Jack sighed. He opened the research book and quickly flipped through the pages. He wanted information about how to act with the Lakota. On one page, he read, Good manners to the Lakota means speaking as few words as possible and sharing gifts when visiting. On another page, he read, The Lakota admire those who do not show fear. Jack's favorite piece of information was, holding up 2 fingers means friend. Jack put the book away. He ran to catch up with Annie. Annie was telling Black Hawk all about their grandmother. The boy listened silently. Annie, Jack whispered, I just read that it's good manners to be quiet, and we should give gifts and not show fear. Also, holding up 2 fingers means friend. Annie nodded. Got that? Said Jack. Sure, she said. No talking, no fear, no problem. Jack looked up. He caught his breath. Ahead of them, the people at the campsite had stopped what they were doing. All eyes were turned to Jack and Annie. Jack quickly held up 2 fingers. Annie did the same. Chapter 4. Good Manners. Black Hawk led Jack and Annie toward the teepees. Everyone kept watching them. Jack couldn't tell what anyone was thinking. No one looked angry, but no one looked happy either. Jack wondered how to appear brave. He glanced at Annie. She walked tall and straight. Her chin was up, her face was calm. Jack straightened his shoulders. He lifted his chin, and he felt braver. Black Hawk stopped and slid off his pony. The pony headed for the grazing pasture. Then Black Hawk led them to a teepee. It was covered with buffalo designs. Grandmother is inside, Black Hawk said to Jack and Annie. Inside, the teepee looked like a small round room. A fire burned in the center. Smoke rose through a hole at the top. An old woman sat on animal skins. She was sewing beads onto a moccasin. She looked up at Jack and Annie. Grandmother, said Black Hawk, this is Jack and Annie from Frog Creek, Pennsylvania. Jack and Annie both held up 2 fingers for friend. Grandmother raised 2 fingers also. Then Jack took off his coonskin cap. He gave it to Grandmother. She put the cap on her head, then laughed. Jack and Annie laughed too. Grandmother's laughter and kind face reminded Jack of his own grandmother. You wish to learn our ways, she said. Jack and Annie nodded. Jack could tell she was wise. Grandmother stood and left the teepee. They followed her. Outside, everyone was busy again. They all seemed to know that Jack and Annie weren't enemies. Jack looked around the camp. Men and boys carved bows. Women and girls pounded meat and sewed clothes. One girl was adding claws to a buckskin shirt. The bear claws will give her the strength of the bear, said Grandmother. She was sew on hawk feathers, elk teeth, and porcupine quills too. All will give her the power of the animals. Jack pulled out his notebook and wrote, Sew bear claws to shirt. I have strong animal power when I go on a buffalo hunt, Black Hawk said proudly. What do you mean? Asked Jack. I will show you, said Black Hawk. Wait. Black Hawk went back inside the teepee. Annie turned to Grandmother. Why does he hunt the buffalo? She asked. The buffalo gives our people many gifts, said the old woman. Food from his body, teepees from his skin, tools from his bones. Jack started making a list. Cups from his horns, Ramona went on. Ropes from his hair, even winter sleds from his ribs. Jack finished his list. Buffalo, skin equals teepee. Bones equals tools. Horns equals cups. Hair equals ropes. Ribs equals sleds. That reminds me of the seal hunter in the Arctic, said Annie. He used all the gifts from the seal's body. He didn't waste a thing. Just then Teddy began growling and barking. Jack and Annie turned around. They both gasped. Coming out of Grandmother's teepee was a huge wolf. Chapter 5. Sunlight and Midnight. The wolf had yellow eyes and sharp teeth. Teddy snarled and barked. Annie rushed forward to grab the little dog. Suddenly, the wolf stood up on his hind legs. Yikes, said Annie. She leaped back. Then she and Jack started to laugh. The fierce wolf was Black Hawk wearing a wolf's hide. His head came out through a slit near the wolf's neck. He gave Jack and Annie a little smile. That's a great wolf suit, said Annie. Why do you wear that? Asked Jack. The wolf is the most powerful hunter of the buffalo, said Black Hawk. When I wear his skin, I feel his strength. Wow, said Annie. Black Hawk looked at its grandmother. May I show them the buffalo now? He said. Only show, said Grandmother. Do not hunt. We have enough meat today. She looked back at Jack and Annie. Lakota never take more buffalo than we need, she said. That's good, said Annie. Black Hawk handed his wolf skin to Grandmother. Then he ran to the grazing ponies. He climbed on his. Then he herded 2 ponies, one black and one yellow, over to Jack and Annie. "Hi, Midnight. Hi, Sunlight," said Annie, naming the ponies. She patted their noses. "Annie," whispered Jack, "how are we going to ride without saddles or reins?" "Just hold on to their manes," she said, "and grip with your legs. Watch." Annie threw her arms around Midnight's neck. She slung her leg over the pony's back and pulled herself up. "I'll carry Teddy in the bag," Annie said. Jack picked up Teddy and slipped him inside the leather bag. He handed it to Annie, who hung it over her shoulder. Teddy's head peeked out of the bag. "Arf!" he barked. "Giddy up, Midnight," said Annie. The pony started to walk away. "Wait," said Jack. He turned to Black Hawk. He had just a few questions. Black Hawk let out a wild whoop and took off too. Jack took a deep breath. He threw his arms around Sunlight's neck. Then he slung his sled over the pony's back. The pony started to move. "Wait, wait," said Jack. He hopped on one foot, trying to keep up. The pony stopped. Slowly, Jack pulled himself onto Sunlight's back. He gripped the pony's mane. Then he carefully reached up and pushed its glasses into place. He looked over his shoulder. Grandmother was watching. She nodded at him. Lakota people admire those who do not show fear, Jack remembered. He liked Grandmother, and he wanted her to admire him. He let out a wild whoop, and Sunlight took off like the wind. The whoop made Jack feel braver. He held tightly to Sunlight's mane. They caught up with Black Hawk and Annie, and together they all rode through the tall grass. Shadows of clouds swept over the plains. They looked like giant dark birds spreading their wings. Black Hawk's pony stopped at the top of a grassy slope. Sunlight and Midnight halted right behind him. Jack couldn't believe his eyes. Before them were thousands and thousands of grazing buffalo.